Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening: the Sensex and the Nifty end in the red after a volatile Friday. Both indices managed to post marginal gains for the week. Uncertainty over the US-India trade deal keeps sentiment subdued.
We are talking to the United States, of course, but we don't do deals in a hurry, and we don't do deals with deadlines or with a gun on our head.
India does not do trade deals with deadlines or with a gun to our head, says Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal on the negotiations with the US. Asks why India is being singled out over the sanctions on Russia when countries like Germany are seeking exemptions. The White House confirms US President Trump will meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in South Korea on the 30th of October. The bilateral comes after weeks of speculation and renewed trade tensions. Trump also terminates all trade negotiations with Canada over an advertisement that's critical of tariffs. Foreign investors continue to bet big on India's finance sector. Private equity giant Blackstone to pick up 10% stake in Federal Bank for $705 million to become the largest shareholder. With this, foreign investment in finance stands at $7.5 billion so far in 2025. Finance Minister Sitharaman tells GST and customs officers to be polite and empathetic when dealing with honest taxpayers, says the ultimate goal is to make life easy for taxpayers. Asks tax officers not to look at everybody with suspicion. Piyush Pandey, a stalwart of Indian advertising, passes away at the age of 70. He is credited with some of the most iconic ad campaigns like Fevicol, Asian Paints, Cadbury, among many others. He was honoured with the Padma Shri in 2016. At least 20 people dead, many injured after a private sleeper bus catches fire in Andhra's Kurnool district. The bus was travelling from Hyderabad to Bengaluru and caught fire after colliding with a motorcycle. Delhi's air quality improved slightly but still hovers in the poor category 5 days after Diwali. Chief Minister Rekha Gupta says the Union Territory could see its first artificial rain trials via cloud seeding next week if conditions are favourable. Stage 2 of the Graded Response Action Plan, including curbs on construction, enhanced parking fee, are currently in force. Prime Minister Modi enters battleground Bihar and projects Nitish Kumar as the face of the alliance. RJD leader Tejasvi Yadav promises to reduce the cost of LPG cylinders to 500 rupees. US President Trump pardons Shanpeng Zhao, the convicted founder of the world's largest crypto exchange Binance. He had pleaded guilty to money laundering charges in 2023. A Wall Street Journal report says Trump family's crypto ventures generated $4.5 billion since his re-election, largely due to a partnership with Binance. Not cryptos, but let's start with the market action of the day. A volatile Friday, ending the Diwali week on the Lal Street. The Sensex and the Nifty failed to hold on to their opening gains once again, finally closing in the red. So that's this picture there for you at a 100-point cut there on the Nifty. The Sensex down about 350 points, closing the day about 350 points lower. The Nifty Bank lower by about 400 points as well, and 140-point cut there on the mid-cap index. Bank stocks also declined today in tandem with the blue chips. For the week, the Nifty did manage to post modest gains of less than 0.5%. The Nifty Bank, though, closed in the red, despite the fact that we've seen those mega deals happen in the banking space, or some profit booking there. That's the picture for our markets for the week. From equities to commodities, the price of gold edging lower, and the yellow metal is on track for its first weekly decline in 10 weeks. This is investors locked in profits after recent record highs and awaited key US inflation data. Meanwhile, the prices of other metals rose on supply concerns. A mine collapsing in the Dominican Republic boosted copper prices, while a shutdown of Alcoa's refinery in Australia pushed aluminum to a 3-year high. So that's the latest on the commodity space. Foreign investors continue to bet big on India's finance sector. Global private equity giant Blackstone is set to pick up a nearly 10% stake in Federal Bank for $705 million. This will make Blackstone the largest shareholder in Federal Bank. Now, with this, foreign investment in finance stands at $7.5 billion so far in 2025. Gaurav joins us now with the slew of deals that we've seen in the banking sector. It's been a big year for banking, Gaurav.
When we look at the financials, it's actually raining capital is what we can say, because in the Indian financial sector is seeing a massive foreign inflow of over 65,700 crores. Now, that's worth $7.5 billion, and this is in this year itself. Now, it seems the wave of money isn't slowing down anytime soon, because the latest headline, the deal that we saw, is Federal Bank and Blackstone. Now, Blackstone is set to invest around 6,200 crores for 10% stake in the Federal Bank, and this will be through preferential issue of convertible warrants at a price of around 227 rupees per share. Remember, the conversion will also make Blackstone the largest shareholder of the bank, and it's not the latest. When we look at the series of other high-profile bets that we have seen in the year, let's also not forget about the recent amount of money that we have seen flowing in RBL Bank. Now, on 18th of October, Emirates NBD, now that announced a plan to invest up to 26,800 crores. Now, this is around $3 billion for 60% stake in RBL Bank. Now, again, this is through the preferential equity at a price of 280 rupees per share, and this is actually the largest foreign direct investment that India's financial service sector has ever seen, and this will also make Emirates NBD the promoter of the bank. And this is not just going in the banks, but it is also the trend seeing in NBFCs as well. Sanman Capital, for an instance, when we look at the deal earlier this month, Abu Dhabi's IHC, that they committed around 8,850 crores for as much as 41% stake in the company, and at the same time this will also trigger the open offer for mandatory 26%. Now, this is the biggest capital infusion seen by any investor in NBFC, and at the same time with this, IHC is also set to become the promoter of Sanman Capital. Meanwhile, secondary markets, they did not fall behind. When we look at these markets, they are also reshaping the ownership pattern, because when we look at Yes Bank, we recently saw Japan's Sumitomo Mitsui. Now that is increasing its stake almost to 24.2% after an addition of around 16,300 crores investment through open market in September. Now that will make SMBC as the largest single foreign shareholder in Yes Bank, but it will not be marked as promoter. But at the same time, private equity firms, they are taking their bets, because let's not forget about IDFC Bank as well. Warburg Pincus invested around 4,876 crores in IDFC First Bank, and at the same time we also saw ADI infusing another 2,600 crores for about 5.1% stake in IDFC First Bank. So whether it's banks, NBFCs, the message is very clear. Global investors, now they're betting big on India's financial story. And the stock price, when we look at the stock price movement also, they are not disappointing. In fact, when we look at some of the stock prices, for the last 6 months, RBL Bank, they have delivered around 60% of the returns for investors. We also have IDFC First Bank, Sanman Capital delivering more than 30% return to the investor. Now the question is this just a smart capital chasing growth, or the beginning of structural re-rating for India's entire financial sector? Well, whatever the answer is, it is definitely that the investments are telling one thing for sure. Sentiments around Indian financial sectors, they are becoming strong, not by just foreign investors, but also by the domestic investors, by the way that we have seen flows going in banks as well as NBFCs in this year so far.
Gaurav, many thanks. Well, from one big story to the next, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal says India will not sign trade deals with deadlines or with a gun to our head. Speaking at the Berlin Global Dialogue, Goyal said trade talks with the United States are underway, but trade deals will not be finalized in a hurry. India is currently facing 50% tariffs from the US, which is the highest rate imposed on any country along with Brazil. The Trump administration says the 50% tariff is partly due to India's oil trade with Russia. Goyal also responded to the latest US sanctions on Russian oil companies Rosneft and Nukoil. These sanctions impact India's second-largest private refinery run by Nayara Energy, which is in fact a subsidiary of Rosneft. Goyal said Germany is seeking exemptions from the US sanctions as Rosneft owns 3 refiners in the country. He proceeded to ask why India is being singled out when others are looking at potential exemptions. Take a look.
We are talking to the United States, of course, but we don't do deals in a hurry, and we don't do deals with deadlines or with a gun on our head. Somebody tells me tomorrow I can't be friends with the European Union, I won't accept that. Or somebody tells me tomorrow I can't work with Kenya, it's not acceptable to me. So I think we are all in it together. The decision whether to buy a particular product from a country is something that the entire world will have to take a call on. So I was reading in today's paper, Germany is asking for exemption from US sanctions on oil. Now these are UK already has sorted and probably got an exemption for procuring oil from the US.
This is about the Rosneft deal, sanctions, right. I think, and we've sorted out the issues with Germany. We managed to do that very quickly, and I think the Americans will do something very similar.
So then why single out India?
Well, it's a specific subsidiary in relation to Rosneft.
We also have a subsidiary in India of the Rosneft.
Well, to come and talk to us.
Well, that's the Commerce Minister. In fact, Indian government sources say there is convergence with the United States on most trade issues and that we are, in fact, very close to a trade deal. Abhimanyu is here with the latest. Abhimanyu, what are you picking up from your sources within government on the status as far as the ongoing negotiations between India and the US is concerned?
Well, so far, government sources have indicated that both the sides are positively engaged so far, and there are discussions which are continuing on technical issues. Technical discussions are underway between India and the United States, and both the sides are converging on most trade issues and are very close to a deal. The first tranche also looks possible as per government sources. Sources also indicated that the deal has not been finalized yet, even as India is facing one of the highest tariffs since August, and they don't see any new issues arising as of now, and they are hopeful of concessions on Section 232 goods, several goods which were exempted earlier under Section 232. India is hopeful for further concessions on those goods, which will continue getting exported to the United States from India. Also, government sources have termed that this is not a conventional FTA negotiation, since the reciprocal tariffs which have been levied are not based on WTO norms. Otherwise, tariffs which are imposed by different countries on each other are imposed based on WTO norms, but government sources have termed reciprocal tariffs as something which are outside the ambit of WTO as far as the application of reciprocal tariffs is concerned. Sources also said that both the sides are bound by confidentiality to not speak about the contours of the deal till it finally gets announced, and both the sides continue to remain in technical discussions. So discussions clearly are underway. Several issues are being threshed out. No new issues are on the table as per government sources. And India is hopeful of exemptions on Section 232 goods.
All right, Abhimanyu, many thanks for joining us. Crude oil experts and market watchers believe a complete ban on Russian imports by Indian refiners is highly unlikely. Parikshit is standing by now to give us the details. Parikshit, how can India balance its US and Russian interests?
Well, the latest analysis on the impact of US sanctions on Lukoil and Rosneft show that there is going to be near-term caution, disruption and volatility. But Indian refiners will overcome this, and Russian oil will somehow remain a part of India's energy mix. And here's why. 1.2 million barrels per day out of 1.75 million barrels per day of crude from Russia came from Rosneft and Lukoil. According to Kepler, Russian crude flows are expected to remain in 1.6 to 1.8 million barrels per day range till the November 21st deadline. That's when the sanctions come into effect. Following that, we will see oil imports from these companies declining, maybe going off altogether. After November 21st, we're told that Indian refiners, Indian oil companies, oil marketing companies will turn very, very careful about purchasing Russian oil directly. Therefore, near-term imports of Russian crude may start dipping December onwards, but there is not going to be any major change. This is what analysts are saying. Russian oil flow to India will continue via complex financial, logistical and trading structures. Nayara Energy, which has already been sanctioned, will continue buying Russian oil, according to experts. Now, what will be the impact on India's import diversification? Well, private sector refiners will have to work on a very strong diversification strategy. OMCs are already reducing purchases of Russian oil directly. Most of the oil is being bought from third-party intermediaries. They don't buy directly, so the impact on them is much lesser. But we will see purchases from Middle East, Latin America, West Africa and United States increasing in the months to come. Diversification, which is technically feasible, will happen, but it will not be cost neutral. There will be a higher cost attached to it because Russian crude was coming at a very attractive discount. Now, ICRA has said that the diversification process and import substitution, maybe moving away from direct Russian purchases, buying oil from intermediaries or from other sources, increasing oil purchases from other sources, is going to increase India's import bill by less than 2%.
All right, Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. Now, President Donald Trump has terminated all trade talks with Canada over a television advertisement that criticized tariffs. The ad, commissioned by the Ontario government, allegedly misused a 1987 speech by former President Ronald Reagan. The Reagan Foundation says the ad selectively edited Reagan's words, adding that it is reviewing possible legal action. Trump alleged that the ad was aimed at interfering with the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court. The White House has confirmed that President Trump will meet Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in South Korea on the 30th of October. The meeting will take place on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. It will be the first face-to-face meeting between the two leaders since Trump's return to office. The bilateral comes after weeks of speculation and renewed trade tensions. Remember, a trade truce between the economic superpowers will expire on the 10th of November if they fail to agree on another extension. Trump has also set the 1st of November as the deadline for additional 100% tariffs announced earlier this month. Back home, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman telling GST and customs officers to be polite and empathetic when dealing with honest taxpayers. Addressing a CGST event in Ghaziabad, the Finance Minister also said the ultimate goal is to make life easier for taxpayers and urged tax officers not to look at everybody with suspicion.
The next generation GST is not just about rates, it's not about slabs, it's not about simplification, it's not about just due diligence. It should make the taxpayer feel different. We are now honorably treated. We are the taxpayers of the nation. And if there are people who are bad sheep among taxpayers, you will still have the protocol to follow and catch hold of them. But don't look at everybody with suspicion. Even if you're not going to help the country, don't disserve the country by being laid back. Be proactive. You're very good at that. That our ultimate goal is to make life easier for the honest taxpayer. I repeat, for the honest taxpayer. I do not want comfort given to the dishonest ones in any way.
Well, that's the Finance Minister. India's private sector growth has seen some moderation in October. The HSBC Flash India Composite PMI Output Index, which measures the combined performance of India's manufacturing and services sectors, eased to 59.9 as against 61 in September. This is the lowest level since May this year. Any reading above 50 indicates expansion, so we're well over that. India's leading Black Galaxy granite producer Midwest made a strong market debut, listing 9% above its IPO price. The stock closed 7% higher than the IPO price. The issue was oversubscribed nearly 88 times. US pharma major Eli Lilly has allowed Cipla to sell its weight loss drug under a new brand in India. Eli Lilly will manufacture the drug, while Mumbai headquartered Cipla will market it under the brand name Your Peak as per the deal. Your Peak will be available as a once-weekly pre-filled injector pen similar to Lilly's Mounjaro Quick Pen. The drug's price will also be similar to Mounjaro. We'll end to a break, but up next, Piyush Pandey, the stalwart of Indian advertising, passes away at the age of 70. A spotlight on his life and legacy when we return. Piyush Pandey, stalwart of Indian advertising and the author of some of India's most iconic ad taglines, has passed at the age of 70. He was responsible for some of the most memorable ad campaigns, like brands like Fevicol, Asian Paints, Cadbury, among many others. He was honoured with the Padma Shri in 2016. Mangalam Malu's here with Piyush Pandey's contribution to India's advertising industry, nothing short of seminal. Malu.
Indeed, Piyush Pandey, the towering creative mind who changed the way the country was looked at when it comes to advertising, is no more. He was just 70. Born on 5th September 1955 in Jaipur, Piyush Pandey's journey was anything but ordinary. He played cricket for Rajasthan under-22, worked as a tea taster before joining Ogilvy and Mather in 1982 as a client servicing executive. Over 4 decades later, he just didn't build campaigns. He built a cultural language that India still speaks in. हर घर कुछ कहता है, फेविकॉल का मजबूत जोड़, कुछ खास है जिंदगी में, or even Mile Sur Mera Tumhara. These weren't just taglines, they were emotions that stitched India together. He was honoured with the Padma Shri in 2016, became the Chief Creative Officer for Ogilvy Worldwide, the first Indian to do so in 2019, and even as recently as last year, received the Legend Award at London International Awards. But beyond the words or beyond the awards, it was the wisdom and wit that made him who he was. He often said, "I don't write for the client, I write for the consumer." Or, when someone gives you freedom, they give you 10 times more responsibility. Or my favorite, computer mein jhankoge, data dikhega. Upar dekhoge, dunya dikhegi. That was Piyush. Curious, compassionate, connected to real people. For me, it's more than just a loss of an icon. It's the loss of a friend, a mentor, a guru. As an advertising enthusiast, meeting Piyush once would have been a dream come true, but life was kinder. I got to interview him many times, call him for advice, share countless cups of chai at his house, talking about everything under the sun. Those conversations were not just about advertising. They were about life, food, people, humor, perspective. That was Piyush Pandey. Larger than life, yet full of warmth, humility, and mischief. Partner, as he would insist on calling me. Your promise of kachoris in Jaipur and more chai sessions remain unfulfilled. And while I'm thankful for all the love you've given me, also a little angry that you left so suddenly. But knowing you, I know you won't rest up there earlier. In fact, what you do is play cricket in the heavens, make music, and craft better ads for the gods. Rest in peace, Piyush Pandey. You just didn't give advertising their life. You advertised the heart of India. And as you'd often say, Bharat is as much India as India is Bharat. And those two, like Sachin and Tendulkar, are indistinguishable.
If you are trying to communicate something, I better engage you. If I don't engage you, then I'm talking to a wall. And I try to engage people. I respect the receiver. Something that I get moisturized every time I see it. हरगत चुपचाप से ये कहता है कि कोई आजाद देशवासी यहीं पे रहता है. It's written from here. So I think these are things that one would remember always.
Well, true legend there, Piyush Pandey. A quick check of some of the other national headlines. At least 20 passengers were burnt alive when a private bus travelling from Hyderabad to Bengaluru caught fire in the Kurnool district. The flames erupted after the bus collided with a motorbike. About a dozen passengers managed to escape in time, while some suffered injuries. Prime Minister Modi announced an ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees from the National Relief Fund for the next of kin of the deceased. Telangana government has announced an ex gratia of 5 lakh rupees. Prime Minister Modi kicked off the National Democratic Alliance's campaign for the upcoming Bihar Assembly elections. While addressing a rally in Samastipur, the Prime Minister said the NDA government will return to power in the state and ensure good governance. He also paid tribute to former Bihar Chief Minister, late Karpuri Thakur, describing him as a pioneer of social equality. Samastipur has been a stronghold of the Rashtra Janata Dal since 2010. India blocks CM candidate for BiharPoll, Tejas Yadav, has promised to reduce the cost of LPG cylinders to 500 rupees if the alliance comes to power. He also said the government will increase old age pensions to 1,500 rupees. Tejas accused the centre of shielding corrupt leaders and criminals in Bihar and said he will ensure a corruption-free government. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. Stay tuned. We're back in a minute with more.